celebrating 10 years of this film. All right, maximum effort. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I hope you're having a fun time for this holiday, or if you don't celebrate Valentine's Day at all, then I hope you're having a good time anyways. I say that because not everyone celebrates Valentine's Day, including me. I'm just not a fan of the holiday. I'm more of a Halloween and Christmas guy, but Valentine's Day, not for me. I don't have anything against the holiday. I didn't have any serious problems when the whole holiday comes around every year. It's just not for me. But I do like to watch some romance movies on Valentine's Day, like The Princess Bride, for instance. Crazy Stupid Love is another good one. La La Land, like there's still a couple of movies I do like to watch around that time, and this movie is definitely one of those type of movies. And this one is also one of my favorite movies of all time, and I decided to celebrate its 10-year anniversary of its release in theaters. I'm finally gonna talk about in this video, and that movie I'm going to be talking about is 50 Shades of Grey. Gotcha, didn't I? I'm kidding. I'm not reviewing 50 Shades of Grey. I am not going to be talking about 50 Shades of Grey. I am going to be talking about Deadpool, directed by Tim Miller and stars Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson, an ex-mercenary that recently meets a girl that he falls in love with, but also gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. Then he runs into an organization that say they can help him be immortal and not die from cancer, and it does work, but it also gives him a problem where it messes up his whole body, where he doesn't look like himself, he just looks like a different person, and whenever he gets shot or stabbed, he can regenerate easily. So he decides to give himself a red and black suit, change his name to Deadpool, and go after the guys that made him this way in the first place. This movie was highly anticipated when it was coming out because of the trailers they were releasing, and of course the famous test footage they released at Comic-Con back in 2014. But there were still some people that were concerned about it, mostly because of Ryan Reynolds coming back as Deadpool, because the last time he played Deadpool in a Marvel film did not do well, like his take on the character in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and that did not do well. And he also had Green Lantern 2 years after that, so people didn't really know what to expect from him. But after the film came out, it became a huge success when people were talking about it. It made a lot of money at the box office. It is considered to be one of the best comic book movies of all time. Even I think it's one of the best comic book movies of all time. And this film, along with Logan, which came out a year later, popularized the R rating for comic book movies. Yeah, we had other R-rated comic book films that came out before Deadpool, but this is the one that made it popular, where companies wanted to make more comic book movies that were rated R. There are some that succeeded, and some not so much. And this was also directed by Tim Miller, who at the time was only known for directing some small short films, and this was his first feature film. And it really feels like it was made by someone that's been making movies longer than just one movie, because he directs this film very well with the way he sets up certain scenes or certain action sequences. Of course, he did other things after Deadpool like Love, Death, and Robots, but also directed Terminator Dark Fate. Ooh. And it was also another breath of fresh air at the time, because this movie came out in a time where comic book movies were trying to do something different with their characters, where it wasn't always the same Spider-Man or X-Men or Batman movies all the time, where they decided to adapt other characters that haven't been done in live action yet, like Ant-Man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Suicide Squad, or Captain Marvel, or Black Panther, and of course Deadpool, who as a kid I have seen him in some things, like mostly in some video games I played as a kid and some animated stuff I've seen him in, and I'm already aware of Deadpool's raunchy humor, mostly from those things. Like in the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions video game, that's where I took notice of his humor. And I was excited to see the film, and I was 18 when this movie came out. Unfortunately, I missed it when it was in theaters, so I had to wait until it was on DVD or Blu-ray. So I watched it there, and it blew me away, and every time I watched it, it never gets old. And what makes this film still a lot of fun to watch for me is the humor. everything in this humor still makes me laugh so hard where it makes me feel like I'm in stitches. There's not one thing about the humor that feels dull or dated. Everything in it still gives me a good laugh. Whenever Deadpool says something ridiculous that's supposed to be gross but funny at the same time, and whenever he breaks the fourth wall, and there is a lot of that here. There's a lot of moments where Deadpool is just looking at the camera and talking to the audience about what's going on and what he's about to do. And he would also poke fun at pop culture references, cliches in movies, and companies that would mess up comic book films, and would also poke fun at Ryan Reynolds himself. Please don't make the super suit green or animated. A lot of the humor feels out of nowhere and hilarious, and every time I watch it, it still gives me a laugh. And what also gives me a good laugh is the opening scene that would play with the opening credits just poking fun at like the names of the people behind it, as well as having the song Angel in the Morning play in the background. Let's talk about Deadpool himself, who at first you would think is a complete jerk throughout the film, but as the film progresses, he becomes one of those jerks that you just can't help but like. Mostly because of the humor he has throughout the film, or the romance he has with Vanessa, played by Monica Baccarin. I'm sorry if I got that name wrong. And has a great performance from Ryan Reynolds, who at the time, besides Green Lantern and Origins, was known for starring in other comedies like Van Wilder and The Proposal. And he is one of those casting choices where when you look at him as the character, you can't imagine anyone else playing the character besides him, similar to how people look at Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and you can't imagine anyone else playing the character besides him. While I do like Ryan Reynolds in other films like Free Guy and Buried, which is a very underrated performance by the way, but Deadpool in this film has always been my favorite performance from Ryan Reynolds, because he feels like he's giving it his all as a character. He doesn't look like he's phoning it in. He's just giving everything his all to this character. And every time he's on screen, he makes the film a lot of fun. Now let's talk about the romance between Wade and Vanessa. Honestly, this is one of the most raunchiest romantic couples I have ever seen in a movie. But their romance in this film is just as raunchy as Deadpool himself, where they try to talk to each other about how they love each other, and they do it in some very raunchy ways. And it provides some of the best humor in the film as well, but it can also take itself seriously when it needs to. And you do feel bad for Wade when he's going through this problem, when he's trying to stay away from Vanessa so that she doesn't look at him like that, because he's worried that she's not gonna love him after seeing him like this. And this movie also ties in to the X-Men franchise that was going at the time, but it also does it in a very good way where it doesn't feel like it's overshadowing Deadpool, where they do mention Charles Xavier and the X-Mansion, but the only X-Men characters we get are Colossus and Negasonic. The action sequences are a lot of fun and very brutal. This movie does not shy away with some of the violence as well, and there is a lot of blood and heads getting cut off or people getting their heads shot. There is a lot of that in this movie, and gratefully, a lot of the action in this is on screen. Sure, you have some moments where they use CGI for some of the action, but whenever you see two characters fighting each other on camera, you can tell they're using real stunt doubles for those scenes. Now let's talk about the villain of this film, Francis, played by Skreen, who uses Wade as a lab rat to try to do some experiments on him, and also gives him the powers, but also changes his body, and would later try to ruin his life throughout the rest of the film. And honestly, he's not a very compelling villain. You don't get to learn why he's doing all of that. He's mostly just there to be like the villain to do some bad things to Wade, and for that reason, I do think he still makes a fun villain and works for the movie, mostly because of Skreen's performance, and he is at times threatening. Deadpool remains as one of the best comic book movies of all time 10 years later, which That is still crazy that I'm saying that because I remember this movie coming out back in 2016. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite movies of all time, where it never has a dull moment. Everything in this film works, like the humor, the action sequences, the romance, where everything in this film works. The humor, the story, the romance, the action sequences. And for me, this is still the best Deadpool film. I know there are a lot of people that love Deadpool 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm one of those people. But for me, the first Deadpool still remains the best one in the trilogy. I'm gonna give Deadpool an A. So guys, if you have seen this movie, what do you think about it? Do you think it holds up to this day, or do you think this movie is outdated and doesn't work anymore? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing, because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm posting. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. This comic. What am I doing with this comic? Oh, you're still here. The review's over. Oh, you want to know if I'm going to review Deadpool 2? Well, maybe I will. I am going to think about it at some point, but we'll see what happens. And of course, I already reviewed Deadpool and Wolverine back when I was in theaters. And that's pretty much all I have for now, so whenever I review Deadpool 2, stay tuned for that.